Hey, what's up guys? MKBHD here, and Motorola is back in the flagship smartphone game. Do you realize how long it's been? And to be honest, I kind of miss these. You know, it wasn't that long ago that I remember the Moto X and the Droid series being super competitive and unique, and just Motorola in general bringing a certain spice to the high-end flagship game before their absence. But then they didn't make one for a couple years, so they did budget phones for a while, and then they dropped a folding phone. But now it's 2020 and they're back with a flagship. So what do they pack in? Well, Snapdragon 865, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of fast UFS 3.0 storage, and a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. There's a triple camera on the back, headlined by a 108 megapixel main shooter. This thing's got 5G radios, and it's capped off with a 6.7 inch, 90 hertz OLED display that is massively curved around the sides, hence the name Edge Plus. So there's a lot of good things here, but it's far from perfect, and there are some things that are frustrating that sort of feel like come from Motorola being rusty making flagship phones. And we got to talk about the whole curved display thing. But first of all, I mostly really like the way this phone's built. You know, it's metal and glass like any other flagship, and it has some character with the curves in the top and bottom rails that I like. And yes, you're not seeing things. That is a headphone jack on a flagship phone in 2020, one of the last you'll find. Speaker at the bottom that's paired with the earpiece at the top, to my ear gets pretty loud and sounds really good. But what's funny is, even as thick as this phone is, the camera bump on the back for those huge cameras still sticks out even more, and since it's off to the side, yes, it absolutely still rocks on a table. Classic. But the one thing I dislike the most isn't the camera bump or the fingerprint magnet that is the back of this phone, but it's because this display, this waterfall display, so dramatically curves over the edges. Like the Huawei Mate 30 Pro, it pushes the buttons on the side of the phone back from the center. So they're not in the middle anymore, they're like pushed back even further from the middle where they'd usually be. And also I usually like when the volume buttons are on the opposite side of the phone as the power button, but they're all on one side here. But I guess that's something you can pretty easily get used to. Oh, you know what else I recently noticed? When you shake this phone, aside from turning on the flashlight, it makes this noise. You hear that? So I thought that noise was coming from the buttons like rattling inside the phone, which was like, oh, that's not very good quality, that's not very good feeling, but you still get that noise when you hold the buttons down. Turns out that noise is coming from the giant camera and the optically image stabilized sensor inside the back of the phone here. I verified that because the same sort of system in the Galaxy S20 Ultra also makes this rattling noise. So anyway, it's not an actual fault of the phone. I just felt like pointing it out because I noticed it. These sensors are getting huge. Also, don't shake your phone that much. I missed the Motorola flagship software treatment, like a lot. There's not that many like it, but it's really nice. It's a relatively clean Android 10 with Motorola features added. That's always what I loved about those previous Motorola flagships. If you go back and watch those older views, this is almost the same thing. You have the Motorola Actions, the double chop to turn on the flashlight, the double twist to quickly open the camera app, and all that stuff is still here. There's also Motorola's couple widgets, including this time and weather one on the home screen with this weirdly low frame rate animation. But it's still pretty much mostly what I would expect, but I guess they've gotten a bit rusty because this Verizon exclusive phone has more bloatware pre-installed than I've seen on any premium phone in a long time. I actually didn't uninstall any of them yet, so you can see them all here, but it came with all these games, 2 different versions of Candy Crush, the Verizon Cloud app, a digital secure app, there's Disney Plus, and then another game, and then another game. Sheesh, I didn't know initially if this is a Verizon thing or a Motorola thing. Probably a Verizon thing, but yeah, of course you can just go through and uninstall them all one by one, but it just doesn't feel premium when you have to go through that. Also, one other little thing that doesn't feel flagship quality on this phone is the vibration motor, something that's underrated on a lot of those really good phones. This one has one that's kind of rattly and doesn't feel that great, on par with like $400 phones. I wish it was better. But the battery is one thing I can't complain about though. 5,000 milliamp hours is here. It's a huge cell, and that's a trend I'm happy to see continuing in these flagships, and it's translated well. I was getting regularly 6+ hours of screen on time, which is awesome, and it was lasting through the end of the day with battery to spare, which is what matters. And I guess that makes perfect sense for a phone with a 1080p display and such a huge battery. And there's also wireless charging, and it comes with a decently fast charger in the box. The one thing I'd be hesitant about, well, not hesitant really, just to keep in mind is this is a 5G phone. That's one of their main focuses of it on Verizon, which, cool, great. But I'm not in a 5G area. You might have seen my 5G explain video where I was testing Verizon's millimeter wave 5G. If not, I'll leave it below the like button. But basically, I live near New York City, which is one of those cities that's lighting up with 5G now. But that millimeter wave does not reach here from there. So I've been using this as a 4G phone basically since then. So that means someday in the theoretical future, they'll be lighting up 5G around here, and then this phone will connect to that, and it'll start getting those better speeds, but also that will draw more battery life. You know, how much more, we don't know, but that's why 5G phones have all had mostly bigger batteries. But generally, 5,000 milliamp hours, I'm not complaining. And then this camera, 108 megapixels. Now you might be thinking, wait a second, we've seen that number before, and you'd be right. Galaxy S20 Ultra, Mi Note 10, this is another 108 megapixel main camera. And for the most part, it's pretty similar to Samsung's camera. Matter of fact, the colors are quite nice, and the shots are very detailed as you'd expect. Dynamic range is nice with auto HDR as well. And it's spitting out 27 megapixel photos by default, and basically if you give it a little light, you get good shots. But it struggles again, I have to mention this, with the sensor being so huge and the super shallow depth of field that comes with that, especially with closer up subjects. You've heard me say this before, but you know, sometimes a shallow depth of field looks cool. I've raved about that in the past, but to a certain limit. Look at this photo I took of a sign. It's crazy, it looks normal at first, but the left side of the sign is sharp and in focus, but the right side is a little out of the plane of focus, so it's blurry. Sheesh. Now you've probably heard me talk about this before, but the real problem here is Motorola's viewfinder in their camera app sharpens the crap out of whatever you're taking a photo of. It's like cranked to 100, like you know that Lightroom clarity filter? Or if you just turn sharpness all the way up, it looks like an effect. So the sharpness is exaggerated literally to a point where you can't actually tell looking through the viewfinder if you're nailing focus or not. I took shots like this by pointing and shooting, thinking focus was fine because it was sharp in the viewfinder, but then when I looked at the picture closely and I saw what happened, I had to take it again. And this happened multiple times. Here's a screenshot of the viewfinder of what I'm seeing, and then the photo that I got. And again, when you zoom in a bit, you realize it's a bit out of focus and you have to actually look at the photo to realize and take another picture. You can legitimately actually miss focus if you don't check. Motorola, why are you sharpening the viewfinder this much? You have a good camera, tone it down, relax. But also, I feel like we could use that dual aperture feature again. Anyway, before I rant about this curved screen, let's cool down a bit with a message from this video's sponsor, Honey. So, we're all doing a lot more of our shopping online nowadays. So thanks to Honey, saving money during this process is now easier than ever because Honey is an online shopping tool that will find promo codes and apply them to your cart. So in just a few clicks, you install the Honey plugin in your browser of choice, Chrome, Safari, whatever it is, and then whatever site you're on, your favorite websites, Target, Walmart, Newegg. When you're checking out, this little box drops down and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons, wait a few seconds for it to scan promo codes across the internet, and then watch the prices drop. In case you were wondering, I started using Honey this year and I've already saved money on some of the stuff I'm using to build up this new studio, and I will continue to use it because I need a lot more acoustic paneling, and that's the sort of thing you can save a lot of money on. And Honey has found its over 17 million users, over $2 billion in savings, and it's supported at more than 30,000 different stores online. It's like by not having Honey, you could literally be passing up on free money, and who would do that? It's free, easy to install, takes 2 clicks. So what are you waiting for? Get Honey for free right now, like today, at joinhoney.com/mkbhd. That's joinhoney.com/mkbhd, and thanks to Honey for sponsoring this video. All right, we gotta talk about curved displays. So this phone is of course leaning into it pretty hard. There's some edge display features that'll glow when you get a notification, when your alarm clock goes off, the whole side thing, they really love it. They also named the phone the Edge Plus, but can we stop?
I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
Like there was a day a few years ago where every smartphone display was pretty much flat. But as we start to reach out towards those edges and shrink the bezels a bit, Samsung tried one of the sides rolling over the edge because, hey, they're Samsung and they can try stuff. Tossed a news ticker and some stocks over there and some quirky features on the side, and suddenly it was a hit. People loved it because it looked cool. And next thing you know, their next phone has both the sides flowing over the edges, and we're loving it. And other companies are scrambling to figure out how can we get our displays to do that too. Meanwhile, accidental touches start to become a thing, but you know what, it's early. They'll iron that out. But that never really fully got ironed out. Now don't get me wrong, it still looks super cool. That's the whole point. This is prime form over function, but it turns out that curve over the edges, it doesn't really seem to be worth the extra cost and the extra accidental touches we still get no matter how much they've worked on this palm rejection software. And so now if you look back at Samsung's newest flagships, the Galaxy S20 is one of the first ones going back to flatter displays. Turns out it's okay to roll back on some things. We had capacitive buttons at the bottom of phones for a long while before we just stopped that completely. You don't see it anymore. We've had ring flashes, we've had branded bezels, we've had flaps over ports for better water resistance, but all of those things we slowly realized there's better ways to do that, or this isn't the best idea, and now they're gone. It's okay to roll back on things. And so this is my formal petition to realize that these curved over screens, at least these extreme ones, these 90-degree waterfall edges, we can work it back. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Also, not to pile on, but this is the worst fingerprint reader I've ever seen under glass, ever. Like, I really don't know what happened here. I've tried re-registering my fingerprint twice using a different finger, but this reader gives me the most failed attempts and the slowest average speed I have ever seen in an in-glass fingerprint reader. So couldn't leave that out. So to sum it all up, I've liked using this phone, but I didn't love it. And when you start to shop around and compare it, like the OnePlus 8 Pro that I just came from has a higher resolution, a higher refresh rate screen, a better quality screen overall. Turns out about the same quality camera system, much faster charging. There's the same specs, a better fingerprint reader, cleaner software, no bloatware, fast software updates, and less of a curve around the screen. So, you know, the smaller battery is maybe the only downside, but what reason is there to buy the Moto for $999? I just think it falls in that category of phones that you'd be okay with using if you got it, but there are other better phones to buy out there. And I think someone's got to say it. It's really just time to be done with those curved displays. And I don't think Motorola's done by any means with trying out flagships. I think they'll be back. At least I hope so. Either way, that's been it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.